I am forever an idiot. Hey, Red, could you be less of an idiot? No. I'm a blonde. What do you expect? Apparently there's an outlet back there. Okay. Hi, I'm Winifred Fawks, and I approve this message. Hello, my children, and today we're going to be putting an engine back together. And yes, I smoke. Still, I've been trying to quit for a year? The better part of a year? If you're thinking, oh, that's cool. The lesbian transsexual dyke smokes. No, it's not. It sucks. It puts me at a greater risk for breast cancer and a greater risk for lung cancer and a greater risk for throat cancer. It sucks. I don't want to lose my tits. I've been trying to grow these since I was in high school. Proud of my tiny titties. Today we're going to be building an engine. So we're just going to be reassembling the top end like we took apart in the last video. So we got to compress the rings, put the cylinder back on, get the new head on, get the nuts torqued down so that we could get that put back in place. I had an idea on how we can maybe get the poo-poo pipe in place and still use that on this build. And that's putting the pipe on the motor before we put the motor in the frame. We'll try that. We'll try that both with the stock mount and with the universal mount. So we'll see if either of those two options work. And if those don't work, then we're screwed and we have to use just the stock pipe until we can get a MZ65 knockoff or a banana or a flex fit poo-poo or something like that, because I'd rather have a longer pipe than a shorter pipe, because a longer pipe is quieter and I don't want to be waking up all my neighbors, even though I live in a farm right now and I've got like 2 neighbors within a 4-mile radius. It's also like to protect my own ears, because even with how quiet these engines are with the stock muffler, Bikeberry did a test of these engines with the decibel meter at 5 feet. And I'll see about linking that video below in the description. So check the description. I'll have a link below for that. Also in the description, I will have a full, complete build list with all of the parts that I've used so far in this build. Including a couple of parts that I have coming that I'm going to be using. So you can also check that out to work along with the build. I'm not entirely sure that you can go along with the exact frame, but I'll do my best to try and find something along the lines of a single speed road bike like this. I think I found one. I also made a mistake when I was mounting the headlight. I used the generator mount bracket instead of the headlight mount bracket. So the headlight is mounted too high. So I have to switch out the brackets on that one. So the headlight is actually going to be mounted lower, so it's actually going to look a little bit better, which is good. Oh, whoa. Other things we get to do, because mail call came in, which is why we're rebuilding the engine. Our rivets came in. I don't have it out here with me, but our little copper sponge and solder and rosin came in. But also, my new solder gun came in. because I went through all of my stuff, and apparently when I moved to Michigan, I didn't bring my solder gun with me from Milwaukee. And a $21 solder gun is cheaper than $200 Amtrak tickets to go back to Milwaukee to go digging through all of my toolboxes in my sister's garage to find a $21 solder gun. It just makes more sense to buy a new one, right? Let's get to it! And as you remember, we got that CDH head. We got our little 47 millimeter open port piston, and our aluminum head gasket, and our apparently long stroke Sutek 80 mil or 80 cc motor. So this is actually a really good little setup, and even looking down at the impression that the cylinder left on the base gasket, there wouldn't have to be much messing around done to port match these case halves. But anyway, we're not really worried about that. What we are worried about doing is getting this thing put back together now. So, I'm going to drop it on. And this is a very delicate operation, because you have to make sure that your rings are lined up with the pins, and you kind of got to get your fingers in the transfer ports to pinch the rings down to compress them. First one's in. And we went too far. We messed up a little bit because we didn't have this one lined up. That would have broken our ring there. That would have been bad. So our rings are now in. We've got our cylinder pointed the right direction. Bam. That's back together. Put your head gasket on. Drop your head on. Now the fun part is counting out all the washers and nuts and bolts. Now if you remember from our last video, we had 3 washers, a lock washer, and then our nut on each cylinder, or on each head stud. So we're going back on the same number all the way around. And it's a little bit difficult this time because the fins are so much taller. If it'll help, take a small Allen key and your finger to kind of hook them through and drop them on. It's a little bit easier than getting your big fat fingers in there. And be careful you don't lose any of your nuts. Or washers. Because, well, they may not be fancy parts. It's still annoying to replace them. Regular threads, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. The only thing that's weird about them is that they're an acorn nut. You want to be very careful not to cross-thread them as you're going on. Just like tightening down a 4-lug bolt pattern on a car. Want to kind of go crisscross. Star pattern. I'm not going all the way down yet. I'm just making sure that they're threaded. And that should be about good. Granted, I don't have a torque wrench that is light enough to go to 12 pounds. And I do have one on order, and when it gets here, I'm going to be double checking that those are actually at 12 pounds and not like 10 and a half, 13, 9, and 14. So that is one thing to be mindful of. So you are going to be seeing me, before we fire this up, making sure that these are actually at 12 foot-pounds of torque. Alright, now like I said, we were going to try and put the poo-poo pipe on the front here, at least the primary pipe, and then drop it in just to see if it fits. Let's do that. Oh, so we're at an angle there. And we're tight there. So let's try it with the universal mount quick. Nope, we are right in the middle of the crankset with that. Yep. This exhaust is not going to fit this frame. Not unless I bend this pipe at this point here where it's already bent. If I bend it up, we'd have clearance. If I could mount higher, like up here, we'd have clearance too. Like with one of those CNC adapters. One of those CNC adapters might work for getting this high enough for this to work. But I don't know if there's a CNC adapter that's the right size for this frame. Oh well. Stock exhaust it is. Even just with 2 bolts finger tight, it is tight enough for you to not have to worry about the wobble with it falling out. Now, let's get ready to measure this throttle cable for cutting it to length. So I already have the throttle cable removed from the housing and the throttle assembly, like the needle and everything like that, taken apart. So I'm just going to screw the adjuster back in to the top of the carburetor with nothing in it. I know how much throttle cable there is at the end that I need to keep. And we're going from the 3rd hole. Not that much. This needs to be pretty much together for us to put this on. And we also have to kind of put this assembly back together. So that method right there is how I measure for my throttle cables. I'm not sure if y'all saw it, but where I'm pinching this wrap is where did I go with my paint now? Let's pop that top. Just a quick spritz, spray paint, as it marks where the cable is going to be cut. So of course after you do that, you want to double check the length of cable that sticks out from your cable housing. You want to make sure that you measure that before you clip the throttle stay. The little keeper at the end of your throttle cable, you know. This little guy. I want to measure not this length, but the total length of cable from end to end with the cable free of your throttle grip. You want to measure the whole length free, not just there. But yeah, it looks like there's a good bit of distance that is going to get lopped off this cable, isn't it? But you can also see what we're going to be using the rivets for. So the trick I saw was taking one of these little 1/8" rivets, because they're just about the same dimension. In fact, if I grab my throttle barrel, you'll see it fits in the throttle barrel just as easy as pie. That you lightly grip the fastener pop the rivet pin out and lop about 1/2 millimeter off of the end, and then you solder that onto the cable. After, of course, you smash up the cable into some rosin and solder it together so that it, sticks nice and takes to the tin really well. Now these rivets are aluminum, so they also solder really well, which is a good thing. And it should stick really well, and we shouldn't have any issues with our custom length throttle cable. And if we do, well, we'll just be able to measure the length of throttle cable that we have left, and from there we'll be like, oh, we need a 31-inch throttle cable, and we can just order a 31-inch throttle cable. I don't actually know how long the throttle cable is going to be. I was just throwing that out there as a ballpark. It fell on the floor. Don't blow up, please. Oh, thank Christ. Do I really have the energy to cut that cable? Brake cable ends.